Hello, today I want to show you how to look after your swing. I'm showing this on a swing that is 4 years old, 4.5. It's been hanging outside under a beautiful willow tree and I have not done anything to it since we put it up as the first job when we moved into this house. And what's happened in the meantime is that we've had a little bit of lichen and obviously weathering, where you can see these tiny little lines. I'll put it a little bit further. This is very practical. You can see the little lines that, the little shakes that develop in the oak. Because we use kiln-dried oak and the very best quality material, you don't actually need to do very much to these on a regular basis. Sometimes you can have some bird poo landing if there's a bird sitting above, and then it's just a little bit of soap and water and just wash it off. But today I'm going to do a little bit more of a thorough refurb on this swing. So the things we need are we have sandpaper of 2 different grits. We use 120 first, followed by 240 grit. Ask us if you need any of that. I have a little rag and I have a little bit of oil here. I just want to show you the biggest transformation that you can do. It's not necessary to oil it because the oak has enough tannin in it to last. But I just thought I'll show you how you can transform it into a very beautiful a piece of weathered oak. So I'm going to show you how to sand it down to get rid of this lichen, and then we're going to oil it. I would say the main reason for removing the lichen, I love the look of it, but the main reason is you want it to dry out as quickly as possible. So when it's been raining and you want to go out and sit on your swing, you don't want to have this lichen on top because that will take longer to dry out. So if we get rid of all of this, then it will just be available to use without getting a wet bottom quicker. I start with the coarsest sandpaper and I'm just quickly rubbing it all over. One thing I would say you should be careful about is don't sand the rope here because that can damage the fibres. So I'm a little bit careful just as I get close to the rope. When you're sanding something, you always want to go with the grain. So on a swing, you'll go this way. Very quickly, you can actually see the difference. Some people might want to use an electric sander, an orbital. The problem with that is that if you get too close to the rope on the corners, you can then cut into it. So I find it much better to use sandpaper by hand, and you don't have to do that much, so therefore it's just worth doing it this way. It's so much easier. You don't have to bring any more tools out. It's just a really simple way of making this look fantastic. My main reason for doing this is so that the top dries more quickly, but I also want to show you how beautiful it is when you sand an old engraving. So it starts off with lettering like that, and then you just go slowly and carefully over it. I don't go inside the engraving because that will, well, it would just be too much really. So I just gently go over it. The engraving that we carve by hand goes deep enough so you won't harm it by going over it like this. When you're sanding something, you're not even sanding away a millimetre. So there's very little chance of anything going wrong with this. How much you remove of this, it's really a matter of taste. So I would go evenly all over, step back and have a look and see if you want more taken off of the patina or if that's enough. So I'm just going to keep going all over and see what happens. If you send your swing back to the workshop for a refurbishment, then we will do all of this mechanically and bring it back a little bit more. It's really good to do this outside because it doesn't really matter how much dust you make. I forgot a brush, which is just useful to have, obviously. So I've now sanded it all over with the 120 sandpaper, and I'm just going to see how far we got with that. All the surface has been touched and removed anything that was sort of growing on it. To prevent new things from growing, it's a good idea to get it as smooth as possible, and that's why I use a finer sandpaper all over to get the final finish. So we'll get onto that in a minute. But I just get rid of most of the dust, and you can already see, so you can see now lots of dust in the engraving, but if I go, it really shows up so beautifully with the weathering still present inside the carving, but the wood around the engraving has got a little bit lighter, and I just love that look. So on with the other sandpaper. It's much quicker to do the finer sandpaper, so I'll just go all over with that. Now this swing now feels absolutely gorgeous and smooth again. And the process for maintaining a garden bench or even signage is very similar to this. Just get a couple of pieces of sandpaper, go with the coarsest sandpaper first, sand away the roughest things, and then just use the finer one to get a smooth finish. That smooth finish prevents the further growth in the wood, and it just makes it last longer. I would say that sanding it like this is the only thing you should do with a sign, for instance, but and a bench. But I'm now going to show you an optional thing, which is purely cosmetic, to oil it now. It will just bring out the engraving again, and we'll see the grain in the wood more clearly. But I don't actually think it's necessary to do that, because oak has so much natural tannin in it that in terms of preservation, the wood will do the job itself. But we're going to, just for cosmetic purposes, apply some oil. I'm using Danish oil today, but you can use teak oil or any garden furniture preservation if you want to. I find Danish oil has the right balance of being easy to apply, but not too difficult to work into the wood. So let's see how this goes about. I can just pour a little bit on the top here. I'll leave it here. So I'm pouring oil out, and you can see how it's going into the wood and changing the colour of it. But look at this, how the engraving now will even stand out even more. It's really just feeding the wood. The end grain in particular changes when you apply it, so you can see here. Always look on the instructions of the oil that you're using. One thing that is very important is that these rags need to be disposed of safely. We normally burn ours just to be safe. They can self-combust if you just leave them, so don't just put them in the bin. So wood is like a sponge, so if you apply lots of oil, it will take more wiping to get the oil off as well. But if you have lots of oil, just apply it generously. It will soak in. One thing I didn't say is that obviously you want to do this when the wood is completely dry. So I've now covered the swing all over. We're about to lose the light actually, but hopefully you can see I'm continuing to feed the swing and as long as it keeps soaking in the oil. So I'll put a little bit of generous coating all over the top again, and then we want to leave it for a few minutes to soak deep into the wood. So I've given it a generous coat. I'm going to leave it for about 10-15 minutes and then we can wipe it down again. So just a moment. So I'm back with a clean rag and I'm going to wipe down and away any surplus oil. And this is a good chance to just polish it for that final finishing touch. But you can see that everything has been sanded and oiled, and I think the engraving's looking beautiful. It will take a few hours for the swing to be ready to be used again, because you don't want to put a nice pair of jeans straight on this. But just make sure that there are no pools of oil anywhere so that it just dries up evenly. I'm really pleased with that. I think the engraving is looking stunning. Look at those, every letter hand carved, and it just looks better over time, which is one of the joys of making these swings. It might be that in a couple of years' time, the rope needs to be replaced, and we can do that. You can simply book in with a workshop. We will collect the swing and re-rope it for you. And then it will come back looking like this with brand new rope as well. But this swing, I think it has a couple of more years for the rope, given it's quite a damp setting here under this willow tree. But the seat itself, that will probably see me out. So it's worth looking after it and making it smooth whenever you have the chance. So this is the first time I've done anything to it. But look at this, and you can see it in the evening light. I just love seeing these letterings, and let's see on the other side. You can see that as well. We make the things we wish existed. This is looking gorgeous now, and it's one of those little jobs. Took me half an hour, and it just is so fulfilling. So I will really enjoy my cup of coffee here tomorrow. See you soon. We're about to lose the light here, but I am really pleased with how this has come out, and it's a job well worth doing. Look at that.